Hello and welcome to our Lecture and Learn series, an All of Us virtual classroom for continuing education. I'm Kelsey Mahaffey, All of Us Project Director for 50 Forward. This month, we are celebrating Pride with our topic, Pride in Research, with special guest lecturer, Dr. Brian Marshall. Today's virtual classroom is brought to you by 50 Forward, a nonprofit serving older adults in Middle Tennessee and a national community engagement partner for the All of Us research program. All of Us is a newer initiative from the National Institutes of Health seeking to advance precision medicine. Right now, our healthcare system is one size fits all, which does not reflect the rich diversity represented in our country today. The program seeks to change that by recruiting 1 million people from diverse backgrounds to volunteer and share their health information, helping researchers find better treatments and cures for all of us. Nationwide, close to 650,000 have joined so far, with 80% of those coming from communities historically underrepresented in biomedical research, which includes older adults. You can learn more and even join by visiting our website at joinallofus.org/50forward. And now I'd like to introduce my colleague, Keith Richardson, who will introduce our very special guest today.
Thank you, Kelsey. I'm Keith Richardson, All of Us Outreach Coordinator for 50 Forward, and I am honored to introduce our special guest lecturer for today, Dr. Brian Marshall. Dr. Brian Isaac Marshall, also known as Dr. BIM, is a behavioral and social health researcher, educator, and health equity champion. He has also a decade of experience in HIV program management, development, community health, education programs, implementations, and working with public and private healthcare entities. He is the founder of Mashup Nashville, a nonprofit working to increase the visibility of health inequities and social injustices that impact the well-being of LGBTQ people of color. Dr. Marshall currently serves as Senior Program Manager within the Office of Health Equity at Vanderbilt University Medical Center. Dr. Marshall leads the development of education and training offerings focused on health equity and racial equality for learners, staff, faculty, and others. He is the course instructor and manager of the Graduate Certificate in Health Equity for medical students enrolled at Vanderbilt University School of Medicine. Dr. Marshall earned a Bachelor of Arts in Mass Media from Clark Atlanta University and a Master's of Art in Civil Leadership at Lipscomb University. He has recently earned a Doctorate of Education in Leadership and Professional Practice from Trevecca Nazarene University. And now please help me welcome Dr. Brian Marshall.
Hi, Dr. Marshall. I think you were muted. Let's
Hi,
start that
yes,
one
ma'am.
over. Welcome, Dr. Brian Marshall.
Yeah, no, thank you all so much, Keith and Kelsey, for having me. I'm really excited to be here for my first Lunch and Learn session with you all. I'm really excited. I feel so connected to just 50 Forward and All of Us. My aunt, she just recently joined, and I see when the bus comes and pick her up in the morning, she's like really excited, to go to the events and the different programming that they have. And so I really feel a part of this family. And so it's just a good moment here today. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen because I don't want to belabor us today. So first, want to make sure that you all can see my screen. Awesome. All right. So again, we are here to talk about the Pride of Research. And of course, it is a play on that it is the month of June that we're celebrating Pride Month. So definitely want to say Happy Pride to everyone who is celebrating. There has been a lot that has been happening over this past year with the LGBTQ community. And this is really a time where people who are part of the community, whether you're allies, whether you serve in research like most of us do, who I'm not sure of who all our audience is, but when we think about all of us, it's research based, and there are some who do research on this community. And so it's a great time just to come together to celebrate all that is and celebrate all the accomplishments, to talk about where we have been, but also be excited about where we are going. And so when I thought about this title, Pride, the Pride of Research, it's really more of a something to aspire to be. And so, like, there was a time where I wasn't necessarily interested in research at all, and then something happened and I like really understood why it was so important. And so I would not always say that I had pride in research, but there were things that did happen that allowed me to see the beauty in research. So that's really what I want to do, is take a journey today to help you all understand, my background, where I became interested in research, and why I understand how beneficial research is to the research community. So let's see here. Let me see if I can advance my slides. Well, Keith, you did such a great job going through most of my bio, but I do like to highlight a few things. I am from 37218, which is Nashville, Tennessee. I love to represent, where I am from. I am the father of a 6-year-old Havashu, which is a Havanese Shih Tzu. I hope he doesn't bark while I'm doing this presentation, but if he does, then that would just be a common thing that he does when I'm doing a presentation in front of a bunch of people. And so, I do like to highlight my educational achievements, not to really boast, but every time I look at it, I think about my journey in education. When I first started, I thought I would be like a news anchor. So I went to go to school for radio, TV, and film. And I did have an opportunity to work for a news station down in Jackson, Tennessee. And it just wasn't really working out so well. And so I moved back to Nashville to really figure out and discover what my purpose is. And so when I look at my degrees, I'm like, wow, like I didn't even know that I would be doing what I'm doing today, which hopefully something about that will inspire somebody as I go along this story. So I always like to talk about how my career did begin in the health or research field. So I started off in 2013 as a case manager. As I said, I moved back to Nashville and didn't know what I was going to do. I had a friend, his name is Christopher Goodwin, who called me and said, Brian, I'm starting this new program. There was a grant from SAMHSA, which for those who are not familiar with SAMHSA, is a Substance Abuse and Mental Health Administration grant. And we were tasked at that time with implementing a program for the Black LGBTQ community, because at that time, they were seeing that there were, of course, the rates for HIV was rising, the rates for new cases were rising at this time. And because of that research, SAMHSA thought there was a need for a program like what we did at First Response Center, which was called Project Uno, to be in this particular space. So this was my first time. I had no clue what I was getting into. I really didn't even know what SAMHSA was at that time. I didn't even realize that we were collecting data to not only fulfill the requirement for a grant, but to also understand the needs of this underrepresented community in this area of Nashville at that time. I did go on to work for this program, or help start this program called More to Me, which is also in Nashville, Tennessee, which was right around the corner from the First Response Center. And this program was birthed out of local data in Nashville, Tennessee, that said that we were missing the mark with young people ages 12 through 18 who are showing up positive for HIV, but we don't know how to locate them. We are not doing a great job of making sure that they are in care. And also we are not doing a real good job of understanding the holistic needs of this population. And so my job was to not only build programming, but to make sure that I'm having those conversations, whether they be focus groups, whether they be collecting some just general data that I can take back and inform our mental health department on what's working, what's not working, and what needs to change. Sorry, I'm talking so much, y'all. But I really want to paint this. I want to paint this picture for y'all just to help y'all understand my journey and understanding how I became to understand research and have pride in research. So, I talked about, and Keith mentioned, and as you all saw, I had an opportunity to go. I was actually a student at Tuskegee University before I transferred and completed my degree at Clark Atlanta, my undergrad degree. And while I was at Tuskegee University, in our freshman orientation class, they started talking about the Tuskegee syphilis study, and I was like, "Whoa, okay." I went to performing arts school from from 6th grade all the way up into high school. We was just dancing and we was doing drama and arts and stuff like that. I didn't know anything about the Tuskegee syphilis study, and so being down in Alabama and understanding what really happened at that time, it really messed me up so much so that I was actually meeting family members of those who had passed away, and they would be able to share those stories of the experience of their family members at that time. And it really did something to my mind, to the point where I absolutely didn't trust going to the doctor. I didn't trust anything research related. I didn't want to be involved in anything that will test me or make me a subject, because I just didn't trust anything about the research process, just from me learning and being a student at Tuskegee and understanding the whole dynamics of that. But what I did do was I joined the Vanderbilt Vaccine Trials Community Advisory Board that at that time Keith Richardson was leading, and I was just so glad to be in that space and learn just some basic concept and definitions of research, to be able to talk to medical doctors all across the world, to understand why it was so important, not only to be involved in research, but to understand what we're reading. I'll never forget, and I just have to say, they sent me to a conference in DC. So there's the big conference that the vaccine trials have, and I was in the main meeting. And again, this is my earlier time just really get into research, and I was in the main meeting, all these doctors talking all this big language, and I'm like, what is going on? And somebody was like, well, they have a lay version presentation that you can go and get the version that you can understand. I said, I'm going to that. And I mention that story all the time, because as we talk about research, a lot of times people are pushed away from wanting to engage in research because they don't understand what they are hearing. They don't understand what they're reading. And so I always have made it my mission to make sure that any research that I'm participating in, or any research that I'm advising, that we're always doing it on a level where everyone can understand. And so I have all these other things on here. I won't get into all these different things I'm involved in, but I made sure that I was immersed into different committees and different groups within the Nashville city limits that helped me just to understand more the needs of my community, and how I can inform these entities on things that maybe they need to be looking at. Maybe we're looking at research wrong. Maybe we need to do a better assessment of our services and of our programs to better serve underrepresented individuals. So that's kind of where my purpose was birthed, somewhere in here. Now, one of the focus areas that I want to hone in on, that's going to kind of be the basis of where we go from this conversation, is really understanding social drivers of health. I really believe before we can take pride in research, we really have to deal with some ugly truths. And that is the recognition that not all groups have benefited equally from research, which is a major step towards health equity. And those are those conversations I have all the time with my medical students who are in my certificate program over at Vanderbilt. These are the conversations I have with doctors all across the city and across the enterprise where I work, helping them understand what are these social drivers, which some may understand as social determinants. I prefer to use social drivers. And these are the conditions where people are born, the environments that they grow up in, the work that they are able to do, the work that they're able to do. What is, how does your age play a factor in this? What does your neighborhood look like? Does your neighborhood have adequate sidewalks for you to be able to go out and do physical activity? What is the education system in the area looks like? Are there anything that is set up, whether it is connected to my education, where is it connected to economic stability, my community, where I live, my access to healthcare, not just healthcare, but access to a quality healthcare. How do all these things play in to, the social drivers of health that we see impacting mostly our Black and Brown individuals? I actually did just a little research, because from what I understand, and I'm going to advance my slides. So I'm sorry here. I'm so used to Microsoft Teams and I haven't done Zoom in so long that I'm trying to remember how to do this. So when we think about underrepresentation, we first have to ensure that we specify exactly who we're talking about. And so I wanted to be very specific. When I looked up the National Institute of Minority Health and Health Disparities, there was a congressionally mandate that ensure that we define what disparity groups look like here in the US. So when I say define, we are talking about Black African Americans, Hispanic, Latinos, American Indians, Alaskan Natives, Asian Americans, Native Hawaiians, Pacific Islanders, anyone who has been socially disadvantaged economically, any underserved populations. That we don't talk a lot about our rural communities, and also sexual and gender minorities. And so I have this slide up because I want to go through each one of these groups to just be able to share some data, because we're talking about research. We can't do research without just sharing a little data. And again, I said, before we can take pride in research, we have to talk about some ugly truths. And so when we look at cancer in African Americans, we literally see where, Black men are most likely to have new cases of colon and prostate cancers. Black women are most likely, to die from breast cancers. Black women are also most likely to die from stomach cancer more than white women. Why is this? Let's advance to the next slide. When we talk about our American Indian and Alaskan Natives, infant mortality tends to be a big issue here. We see that the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services have said Native American babies are much more likely than white babies to die from accidents before their first birthday than white babies. This is an issue. When we think about Hispanic Americans, data has shown that Hispanics are most likely to die from diabetes than white people in the U.S. We see that rates of diabetes are much higher in Hispanic adults than in white adults in the same country here in the U.S. When we look at mental and behavioral health, in 2019, the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services showed that suicide was the leading cause of death for Native Hawaiians and Pacific Islanders. And we're talking about the teenage group here up until young adult stage. And also, it's interesting that Pacific Islanders are much less likely, again, to receive mental health services or receive prescriptions for mental health treatment as compared to white people. And lastly, when we talk about racial and ethnic minorities as it relates to HIV and AIDS, which has been a big part of the work that I have done, we see that Black and Latino communities are heavily impacted by HIV rates. We look at the U.S., the data is showing that 30%, with Black people being 30% of the population, that we're almost 1 in 2 with HIV, and Latinos up until 80% of the population, but less than 23% of the people who are living with HIV. Why am I discussing all this again? Again, this is a problem because we are literally seeing how in the medical field that people who are marginalized, people who are underrepresented, and a lot of them are underrepresented in research, have some of the most health disparities that we've ever seen. And so how do we fix that? How do we address that? How do we explore this more? One of the questions that I'm always asking when I see data like this is why? Why? Keith, when I would show up to a lot of the meetings, whether I'm serving on a mayoral appointed board for the Metro Health Department, whether I'm on some committee or in any space, I'm pushing why? And why is actually a research question. So I was so happy that as I was doing some research in preparation for this presentation, that I learned that all of us has this guide for diversity and inclusion. I mean, research. I was also really excited to see that my boss was one of the contributors to this article. So I want to give a shout out to Dr. Consuelo Wilkins, and she's like does have done every article in health. So I'm not surprised that her name would show up here. But I'm really proud of the work that all of us have done in building this diversity inclusion guide. And some of the key takeaways from this guide that I particularly wanted to highlight as we move through this conversation is some of the key discoveries as they were putting this guide together. And so we noticed from the All of Us guide, in the development of the guide, that there were significant barriers. Significant barriers impact representation of key population. The biomedical research community must acknowledge and address them to ensure inclusivity. And so representation matters is what all is trying to say. We have to make sure that all groups are represented in research so we can understand the specific needs of each one of the marginalized groups. It went on to say that a lack of data collection for many key demographic characteristics and social determinants is a critical gap across the entirety of biomedical research. And so if you talk about going back to the slide when I showed the social determinants of health, this is literally bringing one of those social drivers, rather, of health, which is education attainment. And so we can't ignore how social drivers of health also impact us understanding the outcomes of health for certain communities. And we see here sexual and gender minorities. Most of the work that has been done has been involved, particularly just around HIV and AIDS. And Keith mentioned earlier that I'm the founder of Mashup. Mashup was literally birthed out of that need to fill in gaps in research that other organizations may not be tapping into. And so we saw, and a lot of great work in our city has been happening around HIV and AIDS, but most of the organizations focus primarily on the prevention and the treatment. What I saw having conversations with people engaging with community is that there were other factors that contributed to HIV, and HIV was not the root. That the root went a lot deeper. And so what Mashup wanted to do was to be able to ask those questions back to my social drivers model. What are the environmental factors that are happening? What are those policies that have been put in place to create this situation where this community is at the highest of the totem pole for all disparities? And so we're looking at mental. We don't talk a lot about mental health, in these spaces. Spirituality, we tend to in our space have conversations about spirituality because we also understand that spirituality is a part of one's well-being, and there have been individuals who have been harmed, in the spirituality space, which is a whole other conversation for another day. But that is an important part of one's well-being, so we can't ignore that. The physical well-being, again, is some of those questions that we ask. And so we even did something recently, we have coming up, we're doing something unique like a hike, a mindful, we call it our mindful hike, where we'll be going on a trail, doing some yoga, but also getting in some good physical health. And we know that if you're healthy holistically, if other areas of your life are, addressed, and if I feel well and if I feel healthy overall, then maybe yes, I will care about addressing this which I may be ignoring because right now I'm trying to figure out, where I'm going to eat today. I might be trying to figure out where I'm going to live today. Where am I going to get transportation to be able to go here? All these different barriers that people face, we tend to want to address. And so I know I'm getting a little long-winded because I could talk many, many hours and take this many different ways. But I did want to just really appreciate you all for putting this guide together and really pointing out some of those things that we must address. And the reason why we must address those things is also here from this same article that's in line with the All of Us research guide, that it clearly points out between race, ethnicity, I'm looking at access to care, age, income level, all of these social drivers of health that we've been talking about, who has been represented in biomedical research and who has not been represented in biomedical research. And so I don't have to go through all these things. You can clearly see between all of the different social drivers of health that people who are non-white, people who identify as white or not Hispanic, tend to have better health outcomes and tend to be more represented in research. Now, again, I talk back to, my time at Tuskegee and how, that really like messed me up and made me not want to be involved. I had to find a place where I had to marry my fear with, I didn't even make notes of this, so I'm trying to come up with something off the top of my head. I really had to marry my fear with truly addressing what I was fearful of. And marry that was something that I had never been involved with, marry that was something that I never really wanted to do, because again, I talked back to, I just really wanted to be a TV host and interview people. But now I get to interview people in different kind of ways. I get to interview people in focus groups to get some good qualitative data outside of, quantitative data, because I think focus groups are important as well when you're able to engage communities and talk with communities and understand what their needs are. And so to kind of wrap this conversation up, because I do want to be able to take some questions, because I really love having conversations. I came up with these 5 beautiful things that I feel will take, some of the ugly truths that I just discussed and help us to find pride in research. And so I said the pride of research. And so these are Dr. Bim's few little things that he put together. So if y'all want to use these, y'all can definitely use it. Just give me my credit. I came up with it in like 2 hours, so you can use it. So first of all, I just want to say how powerful research really is. Research truly has the power to shift the dynamics of one's health outcomes. I have literally seen in my 10 years how, gathering certain information from communities and taking that back to organizations to where they change either a company policy or where they change something programmatically that was really impactful to the change in either someone's behaviors, impactful to how someone really wanted to engage in empowering their own self, to advocate for their own health, to showing up to their own appointments where, it went from maybe, case managers, blowing your phone up to now clients blowing our phone up saying, when can I come to my next appointment? Research is that powerful that it can really shift the dynamic of not only organizations, but also how clients move addressing their own health. I added this one recently. I actually had never heard of this term until I was putting my PowerPoint presentation together, and I've come across this concept, or this theory rather, from this book by these 2 women, Susan Striga and Leslie Brown, who did this book called Research as Resistance. And really, it's a theory that brings together the practice of anti-oppressive approaches to social science research, and really was emphasizing the meaningful involvement of research subjects in the research process. And so I have to always go back and reference MASHUP because even when MASHUP first started, I didn't know that it would be a research-led organization. I just really wanted to do fun programming that people wanted to come to. But, we still do fun programming to, bring people in and to engage the community. But we also know that we have to come up with creative ways to collect data that help even inform us on how to better serve our community. And so, when we do this by, well, I have historically done this, and let me just say, use I statements. By, when I have been a part of different, organizations, or maybe worked for different, groups and companies where I feel like they didn't let the research tell a full story, my resistance was, okay, well, since you all are limited in the scope of what you are able to learn and what you're able to gather, you're limited in how that looks like. I'll never forget, I was working for one organization, and I couldn't even have a pamphlet up talking about safe sex practices, which was it was a flyer that we used to really drive people in to help inform us on how to better serve them. And it was really a focus group flyer, but it was like, oh, we have, people coming into the building who may not understand that. Okay, that's fine. My resistance will be where I'll start an organization and I'll do everything that you all say that you all won't do, because it's that serious for us to be able to come up with innovative, which goes into my next point, how research is innovative, where we can literally create unique programming. We can create unique opportunities that would help us better, number one, appeal to underrepresented communities, because of some of those past feelings about research, some of those people not really trusting research, which actually causes people to not be involved in research studies, which actually perpetuates that we don't have enough data to be able to inform how to even better serve the people that we want to inform. I want to just quick say a side note. I was talking to this researcher who was doing cancer research, and he was showing me some of his research on how there are advancements in eradicating cancer altogether that haven't been pushed out. And I said, well, can you show me, what the ethnic makeup of those who participated in the trials for this? And when it came to those underrepresented groups that I defined earlier, it was less than 5% who participated in those. So imagine we have this groundbreaking cancer cure for cancer, and because we didn't have the representation in that research, the cure may not be beneficial to certain groups because we don't have enough data to show that it worked for certain groups. And so I really, push this notion that research drives change and everyone can benefit from it. And how can everyone benefit from it? By being involved, like I did, by finding out, programs like the All of Us, and going to different lunch and learns and going on their website and reading about the diversity inclusion guide that they put together, and finding about the different research projects that are coming in. Not just here when pushing All of Us now, but there are research projects that are happening in your city. There are nonprofits, hospitals are always doing research that you can actually be a part of. There are community advisory boards that you can join, that you don't have to be voted in, where you can sit and learn about how can I be more involved into this process. So you all can, number one, hear my voice, that even before you implement the research, that diverse voices are helping to inform what that research even looks like. I'm even working on now, which I'm so glad today, I feel like everything is all coming together with my own nonprofit organization. We have been working on doing a tobacco cessation and prevention program called Mindful Mashup. And a part of that will be allowing people to go through to see a licensed therapist where they're able to, talk about addictive behaviors. But one of the main things that we're doing a part of that process is we're collecting data. Because we're already seeing that, there are some gaps in data as it relates to the LGBTQ community and smoking cessation or smoking prevention. And so we have been tasked with coming up with an innovative program that is probably resistant and powerful, that's going to drive change, that will not only benefit our community, but will benefit everyone. And we just got our IRB approval, which I'm so excited about. So right in time for Pride. And I hope that if you're in Nashville, that you come visit the Mashup table, because we're going to be disseminating our research tool that will even help better inform how we serve the needs of those who are impacted by, tobacco, which, we also know that can lead to cancer, which we also know that those who are impacted by HIV and AIDS, that comorbidities are not good in the overall well-being of those impacted by HIV and AIDS. And so we want people to be healthy all around, and not just focusing on our HIV and AIDS. I know I have talked way too long. I talked more than I even wanted to talk. But research is powerful. Research as resistance. Research can be innovative. Research drive change that benefits everyone. And so if you didn't hear anything else I said, I want you to take away this pride of research into your heart and know that research is beautiful, research is fun, and that, although I never thought that I would be doing this today, that I understand how important it is to be involved and continue to have these conversations. I know that this, may not answer all the questions that we may have about being prideful in research, but I hope that this does plant some seed that makes you curious to want to learn more. So I will stop there. Kelsey, Keith, let me stop sharing my screen.
Wonderful presentation, Brian. Like amazing. I've been just hooked on everything that you mentioned. So thank you, first of all, for that information, because I think it's so important to highlight all of the issues and things that are going on in certain communities and stuff, and those that are underrepresented. So kudos to you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think, Dr. Marshall, I wanted to give you a standing ovation, but I don't want to go off camera. So
Oh, y'all are too sweet.
no, this was just fantastic. Your passion for what you do just shines through in your voice. And I loved this presentation. I love the pride of research. I would love to print that and use that when we're doing our events and give you credit for that, with your permission.
Yes, I'm actually,
just
what I'll do is
beautiful.
I'm gonna have because I literally just came up with that in 2 hours. I'll put the presentation together. I was like, oh, this sound cute, and those colors look good like that. But I'm gonna get my marketing person to actually make a graphic that we can send out to everybody, and you can definitely use it for whatever you want to use it for.
We would be honored
awesome.
to. We'd be
Yes.
honored to. Well, I know we have a couple questions, probably, but just between Keith and I. Keith, do you have any? I wrote down all these questions and all these notes. And Dr. Marshall, you answered several just as we were going through, but maybe not even so much a question, but I'll just point out how much your presentation tied into the All of Us research program, especially, that question of why are there all these health disparities? And that is one reason, the All of Us research program has, been created to try to help answer those questions, and the importance of looking at those social determinants of health, or those drivers of health that you mentioned. We have a social determinant of health survey in the All of Us research program, and we just released our mental health survey as well. So all these factors that you're talking about, environmental factors, where do you live? Are you in a rural area, an urban area? Do you live near a power plant? How's your water quality? Do you have access to safe parks? All of these, like you mentioned, affect your health. So I just so appreciate your clear explanation of being able to share how important this is for researchers. We often talked with people, if you are not included in the research, then you could be left out of the cure. And I think coming to underrepresented communities and seeing how they respond to the call of being invited to the table, and when they finally understand, yes, you're asking me, I do need to be represented and represent my community so I can help future generations, and make those health outcomes, improve those. That's what we're trying to do here, improve the health for all of our future generations. So that was my own long ramble, just really to thank you and point out some of the highlights that I enjoyed here. Keith, do you have any questions for Dr. Brian Marshall?
I do have a question for Dr. Marshall. I know there's so much going on just in the state of Tennessee alone, and with those recent laws and a lot of things that are getting like in place, and they're trying to repeal stuff. Like, Dr. Marshall, how do you feel about that? With you having, an organization that you started literally from scratch, and that are trying to represent people that are underrepresented, and then you have those lawmakers and people in place that are trying to take away certain things. Like, what's your take on that?
You know, I'll be honest, and I will say that like maybe a few months ago, it really impacted me mentally, to where sometimes it affects me even wanting to do the work that I do. It's really discouraging when you feel like you're doing great work and you're making all these advancements, and you're seeing on the back end how the work that you're doing, and not just you're doing, but other people in your community are doing, is really driving people to want to advocate better for their health. And you see different programming that when people come to, they're inspired by, um, to see people who seemingly have, a little more power, or, perceived power, abuse that power, um, that almost disrespects the work that we're doing. It is discouraging.
Yeah.
But I must tell you that I am very hopeful, even in the midst of the dark times that we seem to be in. I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful because I know that there is great work that has been doing. I have even with Mashup, I have an amazing team of people who are doing some great work. And the stories of people that will come into send us emails or come into our DM and say, "Oh my God, thank you for hosting this paint event." That some people may not even understand how a paint event was therapeutic. And so even coming up with creative and unique ways to address some of the things that are happening against particular communities. There's still great work that is happening. The resistance
Yeah. Yeah.
is still happening. And so I'm hopeful because I know there are many people who will not stop resisting against those systems of oppression. So
And that's why I said that, because you all are doing such a great work. Like, I know it's discouraging at times, so but just don't give up, because there are so many people that need help, and I think the work that you do in the community as well as Vanderbilt, it definitely shows and it pays off. So kudos, like I said again, and continue shining that light, man.
I appreciate it.
And I love the research as resistance. I have not heard that, and
Mhm.
I am going to look up that book because
Yes.
I absolutely love that, and emphasizing meaningful involvement from the research participants. All
Mhm.
again, all of us research program. This is something that is so important to the program, that the participants in all of us research program, they are seen as partners. This is a unique approach to research.
Mhm.
Everybody that joins the All of Us research program has access to all of their own health information that they are volunteering, to share with researchers, and that's just so important. So
Yeah.
I just love that. I love the research as resistance. So thank you for sharing that with us as well.
Yeah, thank you for having me. And I do want to be able to, number one, for people who want to learn more about, what I do, not just at the Office of Health Equity. I'm going to put our website in the chat here. And also, I would love to be able to share with you all more information about MASHA, particularly about our Mindful MASHA program, because that's really our big research initiative that we are doing right now, to learn more about it and share with people who may be interested, who are part of our community, who are interested in, changing behaviors, or someone who specifically is interested in quitting smoking, or just looking to address their overall, health and well-being. to find ways to get involved and to learn. And also, if you go on our website, there are opportunities to book us for trainings. And so if your organization is saying, we just really need to grow in this area, please reach out to us. We love to come and help your company, organization, church group, whoever. Meet at the dog park with the dogs. We don't care. We will come in and talk about whatever topic you all want to learn about. So yeah.
And since this is recorded, Dr. Marshall, can you say those websites out loud for anybody viewing this afterwards so that they'll be able to?
Absolutely. So for work at the Office of Health Equity, you can go to www.vumc.org/health equity. For Mashup, you go to www.mashupnation. That's MASHUPNATION, Mashup Nation, because we even though we have a local presence, we try to have a global impact. So mashupnation.org, and you can learn about all of our great work there.
Fantastic. Wonderful, wonderful. All right. Well, Keith, I think you've
Yeah.
got our closing here.
Yeah. I think we don't have any more questions. So again, Dr. Marshall, we absolutely thank you so much for being a part of our Lecture and Learn for June and just letting us know about the pride of research, So, but our time is up for today.
All right.
Like I said, thank you again, Dr. Marshall. And if you would like to learn more about the All of Us Research Program, please visit our website at www.joinallofus.org/50forward and learn how you can become 1 in a million with all of us.
Thank you.
Have a great day. Thank you.
All across the country, people are coming together to speed up what we can learn about health. The All of Us Research Program is calling on 1 million people to join us as we try to change the future of health. For your family, for future generations, for all of us. Visit joinallofus.org and find out how you can become 1